Well, hello to all my Lighthouse friends. This is our first video that we are not doing live, and so that's a little bit different. I won't be able to see if you are watching the video, and so drop me a comment. That way I know you stopped by, and I can always respond back to that. Well, my question for today is, have you ever been in trouble for something that you didn't do? Maybe you were punished for something that your brother or sister did. Maybe a teacher yelled at you for something they thought you did, but really it was one of your other classmates. Maybe it was just a friend that thought you did something or said something and got mad at you for something you didn't actually say or do. Well, there is a phrase that we use to describe this. It's called being falsely accused. And to be falsely accused, someone accuses you, or they say that you did something that you really didn't do. Well, that is a terrible feeling, and I'm sure a lot of you have felt what that feels like before. It's even worse if the accusation leads to some consequences, like getting in trouble, or maybe like losing your job, or getting punished, or losing a friend. Well, today in our story, we are going to see how Joseph was falsely accused. Last week we started to learn about Joseph, and we saw that he was one of the 12 sons of Israel, and that Joseph was the favorite son of Israel, and that caused some problems. His brothers were jealous of him, his brothers were angry with him, and it even says his brothers hated him. Not just because their father gave him a coat of many colors, but also because Joseph had a dream where they were bowing down to Joseph and they did not like that dream. So they threw Joseph in a well. They thought about killing him, but instead they decided to sell him to the Ishmaelites as a slave. Well, that's pretty terrible. But we will see throughout the story of Joseph, even when things are terrible, God is still with us. And God can take terrible situations and use them to bless us and use them to bless other people. So let's continue the story of Joseph. Now, Joseph was taken to Egypt, and he was sold by the Ishmaelites to a man named Potiphar. Now, Potiphar was one of Pharaoh's officials. So Potiphar had a very important job. He was a man who had a lot of influence and power, but he also would have had a lot of wealth. He would have had a big household to take care of. He would have had numerous servants, and maybe he would have had gardens to take care of, or a big house to take care of. So he was a man of wealth and importance. Well, Joseph was one of his slaves. And the Bible says that even though that Joseph was in this terrible situation, that God was with Joseph. And God caused Potiphar to favor Joseph. And so Joseph proved himself to be a man of a lot of talents and abilities, but also hard work. And so Potiphar kept giving Joseph more and more responsibility. And Joseph kept rising to the occasion, such that Joseph became the top person in Potiphar's household. Joseph was second only to Potiphar. And the Bible says that when it came to Joseph, that he had such good care of everything that the only thing that Potiphar had to concern himself with was what he was going to eat. Because Joseph took care of everything else. That's how much Potiphar trusted Joseph. That's how valuable Joseph was. And that's how much power Joseph had in Potiphar's house. Well, that sounds pretty good. But one day there was a problem. One day when Potiphar was away, Joseph was taking care of the household and the estate as he should. And Potiphar's wife came to Joseph. And she asked Joseph to do something that he wasn't allowed to do. Now, Joseph was in charge of everything in the household, but there were still some things that Joseph was not allowed to do, things he was not allowed to touch, things that only belonged to Potiphar. Now, what does this kind of remind you of? Remember Adam and Eve in the garden? God put Adam and Eve in charge of everything. And he said that you can have all of these fruits to eat, except for one. Well, in the same way, Potiphar's wife came to Joseph, and Joseph had authority over everything in Potiphar's house, except for maybe a few things. And she came to Joseph and tried to get him to do one of the things that he was not allowed to do. Well, what do you think Joseph did? Do you think that he did what she was trying to get him to do? Do you think he was going to listen to Potiphar? Or do you think he was going to listen to Potiphar's wife? Well, the good news is Joseph didn't listen to Potiphar's wife. He didn't do what she was asking him to do. But the bad news is, even though he did the right thing, she made up a lie about him. And she told everybody that he actually did do that thing. It's kind of what we're talking about, being falsely accused, getting in trouble for doing the right thing. She told that lie to everybody, including Potiphar. And so Potiphar got angry with Joseph, and Potiphar threw Joseph in prison. Now, so far in our story of Joseph, we have seen two incredibly terrible things happen. First, his brothers thought about killing him and ended up selling him as a slave and telling their father that he had died. That's terrible. Then, even when it seems like Joseph's getting everything together, he rises up in Potiphar's house and becomes a person of great authority in the house and trusted. And Potiphar's wife tells a lie about him, and he loses all of that and goes into prison. Boys and girls, I can't promise you that bad things aren't going to happen in your life. In fact, I can almost guarantee that they are going to happen. Sometimes people hurt us, even people that we love. Sometimes people accuse us of things that we didn't do. Sometimes we get in trouble even when we do the right thing. I can't promise you that bad things aren't going to happen, but I can promise you that even when they do, God is with us. God promises never to leave us or forsake us. Even in terrible times, God is there. Well, next week we will find out about what happens to Joseph while he's in prison. And by the way, prison is another terrible place. But I wonder if God can use that terrible situation to bring about something good. Well, we'll find out next week. Hope you have a great week. Love you, and we'll talk to you and see you soon. Bye.